What moment made you say, yep, I'm definitely dead, but you survived with no major injuries? Once as a kid, I was in the backyard, swimming, while my family was nearby eating dinner at a round table. Most had their backs to me, but I was like 11 and an experienced swimmer. I got into a toddler's float with the leg holes. It ended up flipping over and I was stuck in it. My legs wouldn't come out of the leg holes. I kicked and thrashed as much as I could, but I was so stuck. And you can't hear someone screaming underwater. So many thoughts ran through my head. Mostly how sad I was that my parents were about to find me dead in a matter of minutes, and how they would never forgive themselves for allowing me to silently drown as they talked with friends. I tried one more time to kick with all of my might. One leg slipped out and I was able to get the other out after. I was fine. Totally frickin' spooked, but physically okay. There's a reason not even adults really should go swimming without supervision. Things in water can just go bad. I don't know what a toddler's float with the leg holes looks like, but this is probably also just user error, but you were 11. I'm not gonna hold it against you. Story 2. I was driving home from college on one of those highways with only one lane in either direction and no shoulder. A guy in the oncoming lane didn't see me as I was in a small car. He thought he could pass 4 18-wheelers in one go and pulled into my lane going at least 90. There was nowhere for me to go. He flew off into the ditch to avoid hitting me head on. Likely did severe damage to his car, but I lived. As stupid as that guy's decision was, I have to give him some props for swerving into a ditch. That must be an incredibly difficult but selfless decision there. OP didn't say if the guy lived, but I assume he did. And if so, then I'm glad. Story 3. Boyfriend finally woke me up shortly after we had fallen asleep in a small upstairs bedroom that had a smoldering fire. After we collapsed on the floor and couldn't find the door that was not even 5 feet away, we kept hitting walls and corners and started to not comprehend anything. After feeling like I was baking in an oven, I laid my head down on the floor thinking I would never see my son again and how sad it was to die. It felt like eternity and felt very lonely. My boyfriend somehow found his phone on the floor and called 911. Fire department showed up in what felt like 2 seconds but couldn't break down the front door. They shined the flashlight up to the window so he could kick out the AC unit, which he did. They finally came upstairs and we crawled to them and they took us straight to the burn unit since they didn't know what shape we were in. I'm pretty sure the entire hospital toured through our room since they hadn't seen anyone make it out and look the way we did. So OP linked an image with that last bit, the look the way we did bit, and these are just 2 people absolutely coated in soot. But they're both smiling. They definitely don't look like they should have survived, but they aren't like super burned or anything that I can see. That's impressive. Story 4. I ate one of those oval-shaped hard candies. Think they were called sparklets? At home alone when I was 6. Got stuck in my throat. I stood there in shock for a few seconds as I started to realize I couldn't breathe. I ran crazily around the room and ended up colliding hard into the back of the couch, which caused the candy to go flying out. Best accidental Heimlich ever. This reminds me when I was young, like 8 or 9, I was at a restaurant with my family. I was eating like these Chinese rice noodles and then they had these really leafy, I don't even know what they're called. It's almost like bok choy, but not really, but like the really leafy part of it only. Basically somewhat slimy, green, leafy vegetable. Little me put way too much of that in my mouth at a time and tried to swallow it. That got super stuck and I was convinced that was the end for me. I actually couldn't breathe or anything. I don't even remember how it resolved, but I just remember that, I know I'm alive now, so obviously it did, but I was pretty sure I was toast. Kids eating should not be trusted. Story 5. About 29 years ago, when I was around 6 years old, I went to a friend's house. My mom and I moved a lot since we were always renting. So I wasn't great friends with this kid and my mom didn't know their parents all too well. Anyway, I was upstairs in this kid's parents' room. It's just me and him in there sitting on the floor. He asks if I want to see something cool and obviously I did. He pulls out a box from under his parents' bed. It was a really nice, shiny wooden box. Hefty. He had to put some strength into pulling it out. I couldn't wait to see what was inside. He opens the clasps, lifts the lid, and pulls out a revolver. I was initially curious and probably a little excited to see something I had only seen on television. He then points the revolver directly at me. I freaked out immediately, tried to gain traction as I pushed my feet out from under me. I just fell back and kept pushing myself away from him and the gun with my heels. My legs were jelly. I quickly ended up in the hallway at the top of the stairs, and I just let myself fall backwards down the stairs. I rolled to the bottom, jumped up, looked directly at his startled mother who was standing in the kitchen, none the wiser, and bolted out the front door. As soon as I got home, I told my mom. I remember her going over to their house without me immediately after. Never played with that kid again. If you own guns, make sure what they are stored in is locked, and you have the key. Children and guns is not a good combination. in any scenario. Story 6. I'm a skier. On a few occasions, I've caught an edge at a pretty high speed, 50 miles per hour or more. That moment when you feel both skis leave the ground when they're not supposed to is horrifying. Somehow I've never had anything more serious than some moderate whiplash and a sprained wrist. Knock on wood. Story 7. I had a leg cramp and momentarily blacked out when swimming in a diving pool when I was 16. I was really active that I had overexerted my limit. Surprisingly, I didn't really panic. Just the dreadful thought of, oh crap, I'm screwed. Funny thing is, I didn't really wiggle my hands out of the pool panickingly like I usually see in the TV. Just silently sank. Good thing the pool guard on duty noticed me and went to my rescue by pulling me out. Really wish I'd thanked the guard more that he saved me instead of cluelessly sitting around outside the lobby after the accident. Story 8. Tire popped going over a 2-lane road with steep drops on both sides. My car jerked to the side hard and my car went sideways. Half my car hung over the side and luckily it's low so it bottomed out. I climbed into the back seat and jumped out the back door. Some dude in a truck pulled me out and I drove on a flat to the other side and swapped my tire out. Story 9. The hood on my car came open at 60 on the highway and completely blocked my sight in heavy traffic. I panicked and jerked the wheel a bit, which caused me to fishtail. I kid you not, my driver's education teacher's words from 5 years prior rang in my head to lean down and look through the space at the bottom of the hood. I pulled over and used some wire I'd found in the trunk to keep the hood closed. Anytime you close your hood, make sure it latches securely by pulling on the hood like you're trying to lift the front of the car off the ground. Story 10. I was behind a car on the interstate that had a hood pop open like that. Fortunately, the young guy driving didn't panic, just slowed down slowly. I stuck behind him and another guy pulled up alongside him and sort of blocked traffic so he could pull over to the shoulder. Get him to the shoulder and the other guy and I donated a couple of ratchet straps to hold his hood down. Got him all set up and he went on the road with the other guy following him since he was going the same way. That young dude was scared crapless, but his calm reaction probably prevented a major accident due to the amount of high-speed traffic around him. This is always how I think I would react in situations like this. Guarantee I wouldn't. Like, my brain is like, yeah, you can handle pressure. Are you kidding me? Something like this happens, you just slow it down, figure it out. In reality, I'm screaming like hell. Story 11. My friend and I just spent a few days at a beach shack. My friend just got her P plates. She was super excited, so she wanted to drive us home. This was one of her first times driving alone. Being 17, we didn't really see an issue. I rang my dad beforehand and told him I was getting a lift. He said, I don't think you should do that. I can come pick you up. I can drive some of the girls home too. I think you guys should wait till she's had more experience. Of course, being 17, thinking I knew everything, I said it was fine and I was hopping in her car. We were on our way home playing music and chatting. There were 5 17-year-olds in this car. I was sitting behind the driver's seat. My friend pulls out onto a 2-1 expressway from an old country road, like an intersection. We noticed she's turned the wrong way and tell her to make a U-turn. She pulls to the side and decides to go for it through 2 lanes. She didn't check her mirrors properly and a large truck was coming up behind us. My friend got frightened and put her foot on the brake in the middle of both lanes. We were all screaming at her to keep driving, but she was frozen. I remember it. It was like slow motion. I looked at every single one of my friends. We all kind of shared a moment of fear like, this is it, I guess. The exchanged looks haunt me, to be honest. We could hear the truck horn blaring at us. I looked out my window to the truck driving towards us. I locked eyes with the driver. Luckily, the truck stopped about 5 meters away from us. She pulled away and was really upset. The car was silent the entire way back. It was honestly the scariest moment. I am from a really small town and I think losing 5 people at once would really rock it. Seeing my friends' faces in that moment was actually horrific. I did have a moment of, okay, here comes the truck. It was oddly peaceful. After that day, I have a real understanding that I'm mortal and I can go at any minute. Oh, and to trust my dad. Look, doing a U-turn at the best of times isn't an excellent idea in most scenarios. Across 2 lanes of traffic, not really checking the mirror, oof. All I'm saying is some divine intervention took place. You all got bailed out pretty hard. And don't get me wrong, I'm glad for it, but it was a bad decision, and I'm sure that the person driving at the very least never made it again, if not everyone involved. Story 12. I was coming home from a party at 2 a.m. in 2016. I made a conscious choice to drive through town rather than take the big highway that skirts the city limits. It would add like 10 minutes to the trip, but hey, it was the first time I'd been back in ages. That decision literally almost unalived me. Not even 5 minutes after that, the 3-lane highway, just really a wide road, passed in front of a mall, and there was a signal light there. Well, some drunk idiot decided to turn right into the mall from the far left lane, and I was in the middle. I had absolutely no time to stop, so I slammed into the side of his car at 65 miles per hour. I remember yelling crap and trying to keep control of the wheel to get the car off the road onto the grass before I blacked out for a few minutes. The airbag and the seatbelt combined had fractured my sternum, which took the air out of my lungs and made me faint, I guess. But it didn't really feel like I woke up, more so like my vision came back into focus and I was aware. But those few moments I was still kind of conscious and in immense pain. Worst I've ever felt in my life. I hurt from the skin on the soles of my feet to my scalp. Every single inch was in pain, and I was like, so I'm dead. This is my body telling me I'm dead. So when I came to, heat hit me, because my car was screwed, and the engine was as hot as standing in a fire. So I was convinced my car was about to go up. It didn't. So I tried to get out, but the door was wedged shut from the crash and I started to panic. I put my back against the passenger seat and kicked the door over and over until it opened and climbed out. Every single police officer, EMT, and even the tow truck guy took one look at my car and told me, you shouldn't have walked away from that crash at all. The fact that all you have is a fracture and some lacerations is a literal miracle. So yeah, that's how I almost died and thought for sure I was dead, but got lucky. If this isn't a PSA for seatbelts, I don't know what is. I've never understood the idea of just not wearing it. It was made to save your life, stupid. Put it on. Oh no, I'm uncomfy. Too bad. A lot more comfortable than your family would be if you perished. I guess that's a mean way of saying people care about you, care about yourself too, even when it seems like it won't make a difference. It will. Or at least it can. It certainly can. Story 13. I was driving down a highway doing 65 miles per hour and suddenly my car started to shake. I tapped the brakes in reflex and my entire car flipped 180 degrees. I'm now facing oncoming traffic, including a semi-truck. I was so close I couldn't see the driver compartment. I screamed and jerked the wheel, bringing me in front of a sedan with two people screaming as they watched me appear out of nowhere. I kept screaming and floored the gas pedal, made it to the side of the road and cried for a long time. I had blown a rear tire. Hitting the brakes was a terrible, terrible choice. Story 14. I was a senior in high school, and the student club I was in organized an unofficial beach trip towards the end of the year, no teachers or official permission, leaving me and a few other seniors in charge of supervising everything. After a couple hours worth of fun, one of the students came running up to me and said that 3 of the younger members of the club had been swept out by a riptide and couldn't get back to the shore. Me and 2 other of the older students, all experienced swimmers, immediately went to help them. My friends got 2 of the 3 kids in trouble and started guiding them parallel to the shore, but the guy I went for was panicking, barely staying above the water, and started dragging me down with him almost immediately. I yelled for people to get a lifeguard and tried to keep us both afloat, but after a few minutes, maybe 5, maybe 10, it felt like forever. I was getting exhausted, having trouble keeping both of us above water, and I couldn't see anyone coming to the rescue. I started getting big mouthfuls of water and my leg muscles were starting to cramp up. I remember thinking, holy crap, I might actually die right here, right now, as the current started pulling us further and further away from where everyone else was. Thankfully for everyone involved, one of the surfers on the beach had flagged down a couple of surfers, who made their way out to where we were as quickly as they could and hauled first the younger student and then me, and they took us back to shore. I'll always be thankful and appreciative for those strangers who put themselves in the dangerous position of rescuing 2 drowning swimmers. Story 15. I own a 65 Classic Mustang, which I enjoy driving anywhere it can go. I once took it up a large mountain with a group of friends. The roads weren't steep or especially dangerous, but there was danger present because of how high it was. We made it up the mountain with no issues, and stopped at a bar at the top where my friends got plastered. I didn't drink because I was the designated driver. Before I continue, I need to clarify that the brakes on a stock Classic Mustang from the 60s need to be primed before use. Basically, you have to hit the brakes twice before they work. On the trip down, the brakes cut out and stopped working. I primed the brakes over and over, but they didn't engage. The parking brake hadn't been working the past month and was going to be replaced that Monday. I soon lost control of the car and we started to barrel down the road. We turned a shallow right corner and saw a long road that ended with a sharp turn. At that moment, I thought I was going to die and take my friends with me. They had no clue they were plastered in the back. Luckily, the brakes re-engaged halfway down the road and we managed to turn the corner. It had been 4 months and I haven't touched that car. To this day, my friends have no clue what almost happened. Brakes not working in a car is probably the most scary practical fear to have, because it's absolutely something that you could run into in your life. and yet truly, truly horrifying. I can't imagine the guilt that OP must feel for even putting his friends in that situation. Story 16. When I was about 16, I was mowing some lawns over the summer to make a bit of extra cash. One guy hired me to mow his lawn. He seemed nice enough, like a kindly old hippie who lived alone. I get to his house and he invites me in to give me some yard equipment. Once I step inside, he closes and locks the door behind me. He says, "Just locking the door to keep the bugs out." Wait, what? He leads me through his house and starts saying all this weird stuff. I don't know what you've heard about me around the neighborhood, but none of it's true. I'm straight as an arrow. We get to his basement door. I keep the mower in the basement. Probably should have hightailed it out of there then and there. But as a polite teenager, I followed him down the stairs into the dark basement. Once I get down in the basement and my eyes adjust to the darkness, I start to get really scared. The entire basement had been plastered in 1970s Playboy nude centerfolds, but they've all been chopped up. Missing heads, missing limbs. That's when I turn around and see the guy emerging from the darkness wielding a machete. That's when I was sure I was going to die. I just didn't know if he would hack me up right then and there or lock me in the basement and torture me for a few days. My fight or flight response was about to kick in. But then he hands me the machete and tells me to use it to cut back the kudzu. Huge relief. I mowed his lawn and cut back his kudzu, and the whole time I could see him watching me out the window. Finished as fast as I could and got the hell out of there. He called me a few times in the next weeks to mow his lawn again, but I never picked. Eventually, he moved away. To this day, not sure if he was an actual serial murderer or just a kooky old man who didn't understand how creepy he was. This seems like something out of a movie or something. What a truly horrifying scene to exist within. And for what it's worth, OP, I totally get the whole, just following him down because you're a polite little teenager, you know? I feel like I would have done the same stupid thing. I'm glad things worked out for you, though. The headless and limbless Playboy cutouts, though, that is some serial murderer stuff. At least if Criminal Minds has taught me anything. I gotta say, even though I knew that all of these people survived in these stories, still pretty tense. Definitely gonna have me thinking twice about some things in the future. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed these stories, or I hope you learned something. Hey, maybe these even saved a life. Who knows? So I hope you have a wonderful day or night, wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next one.